Marie in that kind of, it's got that stage. Anyway, she's on the stage. Big round of applause, please. Thank you.
All right. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. This is a real honor to be at BrightonSEO, and it's been a fantastic conference so far. I have to share with you that I'm usually not afraid of speaking in big groups, but I have this irrational fear that my zipper is down, even though you can't see it. And I know that like a whole bunch of you just checked your zipper right now, right? We're going to talk today about Google's Quality Raters guidelines, and my goal in this talk is to give you super practical things that you can do to get better rankings, and I'm hoping that I'm kind of going to blow your minds with some of this stuff. When we started reading through the Quality Raters guidelines, it was unbelievable how much stuff is in there that really is in the algorithm, and I'm going to hopefully show you some evidence to support that. A little bit about myself and my team. So my name is Dr. Marie Haynes. I used to be a veterinarian. It's kind of a weird path to get into SEO after being a vet. I did solo consulting for quite a while, and just over a year ago started hiring people, and now I have this amazing team. There's 10 of us, very smart people, who all we do all day long is analyze sites, mostly sites that have had traffic drops, and help them do better. And so let's talk about these guidelines. And some of you, I've known from talking to some of you at the conference, really don't know much about the Quality Raters guidelines. And I would urge you to go read them. There's about 160 pages in these guidelines. And what they do is they're actually a manual for these people who are called quality raters. Now, quality raters are not the web spam team. If a quality rater looks at your website and sees some type of low quality issue, it's not like your website's going to get a penalty. What happens is there's a whole bunch of these people. I've heard some people say there's at least 10,000. There may be tens of thousands of people who do this. And what they do is they have these guidelines, and then they get very specific questions that they have to answer. And so they might be told, do this search and see the site that's ranking #1. Is there something you don't trust about this site? Would you give your credit card to this site? And if there's information that's getting fed back to Google by lots and lots of quality raters that's basically saying, oh, you know, there's these sites that are ranking and they're really not high quality, then the Google engineers, they make tweaks to the algorithm so that that type of thing doesn't happen again. And they're not 100% there yet, but that's their goal, is to make it so that what happens in the algorithms mimics what they see in these guidelines. And in fact, if you have ever wondered, I mean, every time there's an algorithm update, people ask Google, well, what can we do to rank better? And Google's answer is always create, come on, somebody knows it, create great content, right? That's what Google always says. And so when Danny Sullivan from Google was asked that recently after this big August 1st update that recently happened, he said, look, we gave you a whole book of 160 pages on great content. And this is from a blog post several years ago from Google, who says, we published these guidelines and now they're public for everybody to see. And it's to help webmasters understand what Google looks for in web pages. So they're very, very important. And I should say as well that I have modified some of the slides in my talk because this happens almost every time I travel. And I'm sure it's not because of me, but there's some big algorithm update happening like right now. So it seems to be related to the August 1st update, and I'm going to share a few things about that while we talk. So, first thing that we're going to talk about is reputation. And I have to say, I did a talk recently on a similar sort of thing, and I had a lot of really good feedback from it, but the #1 piece of feedback I had was that I had great cat gifs. So, you're welcome. I'm sure that's why you're here. So let's talk about reputation. So I'm talking about the reputation of your website and also the reputation of your business. And this is really tough because if you're an SEO, then there's only so much you can do to change the reputation of a business. But this is what the quality raters are told to do. So all of the quotes that I have here are directly from the guidelines. The quality raters are told to look for reputation research, look for what other people are saying about this business or this website. And this is scary. They say if there's a mildly negative reputation, that's a sign of low quality. So we don't know how Google algorithmically does this, although we have some hints, which I'm going to share with you. But this is scary, right? Because what if my competitors, I'm sure there's people out in the audience now that are like, oh, I could negative SEO, you know, and leaving bad reviews. I mean, people do this kind of thing. Hopefully, Google's able to see past this. I think that what they're looking for is if everybody everywhere is saying, I have problems with this business, then they don't want to rank it well. So this is a screenshot from the guidelines. You can see that they've used the old Google logo. They haven't changed it. And this is instructing the quality raters, how do you find this reputation information? It's pretty simple. They do a search for reviews plus the URL of the business that they're looking at. And this is what we do in our site quality reviews, is the very same thing. You know, we look at, do you have as many reviews as the people who are ranking #1 for your main keyword? Do you have as good reviews? So if you have, like, you know, a whole bunch of reviews and half of them are kind of negative, and your competitors all have positive reviews, that's probably going to impact your rankings organically. I'm not talking about maps listings. This is something, you know, pretty serious. And these are all listed in the guidelines as places where the quality raters can go and get this information. Now, this information, I'm sure, is not limited to just these sites. And also, I realized when I was doing this talk, when I was preparing the talk, that this isn't even relevant to all countries. I know that in the UK, you really don't have the Better Business Bureau, and I'm going to talk about the BBB and how it's written in the guidelines. So if I'm talking about a site and you're like, well, we don't even have reviews on Yelp, nobody does, then look at what is prevalent in your space. So if all of your competitors have reviews on Trustpilot, then maybe that's where you need to get your reviews as well. So this is another example that they gave of a site that would be considered low quality. And the picture that is in the guidelines is a whole list of the SERPs that basically says one thing after another, saying, I felt like I was scammed by this company, I couldn't get a refund, I got the product and it wasn't what they advertised. And so this is given as an example of something that is not good and a sign of low quality. And then coming back to the Better Business Bureau, the guidelines specifically say that if there's a negative reputation on the Better Business Bureau, that this is a sign of very low quality. And they give this example. I didn't make that red box. That's in the guidelines. They say, look, this business has an F rating. And I do think that the Better Business Bureau in North America is very similar to Trustpilot here. So I would be looking at, and again, whatever is prevalent in your space. So let's look at a little bit at this August 1st update, and some people have called it the MEDIC update. MEDIC because it affected a lot of medical sites, but you don't have to be medical in order to be affected by this update. So this particular site was one that when you look at it, it looks like they have a lot of experience, they have a lot of authority, and so we've heard a lot today about EAT, and what was happening, because we figured it out, is that this was their Better Business Bureau profile. They didn't just have a bad rating. At the top of their page on the Better Business Bureau, it was like, warning, do not buy from these people. Nobody can get a refund from them. They have trust issues, so that's the T in EAT. And what we're seeing when we've reviewed a whole bunch of sites that were hit by the August 1st update, and we're seeing that these three words here, safety of users, is, in my opinion, what the update was about. And it's interesting, these three words were added to the Quality Raters Guidelines in July of this year. And that happens a lot. Every time they update the guidelines, we kind of put it into diff checker and we see, oh yeah, they added this, they changed that, that's probably significant. And so I'm going to move on to another thing. And I could probably tell you, I could go all day. In fact, I do have a talk I give that's a whole day long, a seminar on all the things that are in these guidelines. So these are just the best ones that I can share with you. I have no idea why I chose this GIF other than to say some people are kind of a pain. But user-generated content can be a pain, but it can be good stuff as well. If you look at this forum, do you think that it's a high-quality site? Usually when I ask this, most people say, you know, it doesn't really look that great. Kind of looks a bit spammy. But the Quality Raters Guidelines, they have all these sections that say, here's why we think this is high or low quality. And this is actually rated one of the highest quality sites. And the reason is that it was a forum discussion on, I think it was liver cancer, a very serious topic. And if you were diagnosed with liver cancer, it's one thing to read the WebMD or the Mayo Clinic stuff on liver cancer, but it's another thing to read personal experiences. And Google loves this kind of thing. This is an example that is given in the guidelines. You don't need to read all the text on it. It's a recipe page. And they say this is low quality because it's lacking the types of things that we want to see in terms of quality comments and reviews. So I would really, really encourage you to find whatever you can to put on your sites that is generated by users. Gary Ish from Google, I'm going to have a bunch of tweets from him here. He has said before that high-quality user-generated content is great. Google likes this kind of things. He says, do you know that quality comments can be a signal of a healthy website? And this discussion was fascinating. You don't hear too often Google say, like, oh, yeah, this is a ranking factor. But Gary actually said, you know, if we had to rate things, if high-quality content was a 5 and links were a 2, comments are a 1. That's significant, right? And I see all these sites that are taking comments off their site, and I know why, because they're kind of a pain to moderate. So if you can have comments and you can moderate them well, then that's something that can help you rank well. So let's talk about EAT. And EAT is kind of the buzzword of 2018 for SEO. You know what? I'd whack that banana too. I'm not a fan of bananas. EAT, so stands for expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. And in the Quality Raters Guidelines, they have this list of here's all the things that we consider characteristics of a high-quality page. And the very first thing is a high level of EAT. They also have characteristics of a low-quality page, and I'm sure you can guess what the very first thing is. It says all you need is one of the following, and I would urge you to actually read the guidelines and find this section because there's other stuff in there that we don't have time to get into. But characteristics of a low-quality page are an inadequate level of EAT. So how do you improve your EAT? Can it be done? It can, but it is very, very difficult. That took a long time. I asked Gary Ish about EAT at PubCon Austin, and he said it's mostly based on links and mentions on authoritative sites. And we've had some good talks on that today. And I'm telling you, I think that the vast majority of links that you guys are building are not even being looked at by Google. They're not being counted at all. Google knows the parts of the web to trust. One thing that Gary said was, if you get a link from Forbes, Google knows which parts of Forbes can be bought, and they know which parts are legitimate, like press mentions, because you did something awesome. So getting links is still very important, but you need to get legitimate links where you do something great and people want to talk about you. The guidelines talk all about Wikipedia. It's all over the place. Now you can't get a page in Wikipedia unless you're truly an authority. And so, you know, it's hard to fake EAT because if you're not an authority, then you're not going to have a Wikipedia page. This is from our site quality reviews, and this is something we're seeing again with the August 1st update consistently, that the sites that are ranking number 1, 2, and 3 all have Wikipedia pages. Depending on the niche. I mean, there's some niches where it doesn't make sense to have a Wikipedia page. And then our client who saw the drops and came to us because of that didn't have a page. So if you are authoritative enough to get a Wikipedia page, that's a really good thing. News mentions and mentions on authoritative sites. So this is a really cool thing that Barry Schwartz did at Search Engine Roundtable, where he honored SEOs, which I was truly honored to be mentioned here. I have no idea why he chose an empty wine glass to point at my head. I'm kind of hoping that I drank it. But my point is that that type of thing helps my EAT. Search Engine Roundtable is known as an authority in the SEO space. And so you need to find the sites that are authorities in your space and find ways to get them to mention you. And I know a lot of you are saying, well, you know, they're competitors, so they're not going to do that. And that's a problem, right? You have to be producing really cool stuff that people actually want to link to and mention. I'm going to briefly get through author EAT. There's some controversy over whether Google looks at the EAT of individual authors on your site, and I'm 100% sure that they do. These are examples that are given, and I'm going to go through them super fast here. Mortgage loans, they say the level of EAT is not clearly communicated. You need to have very clear information on your site about your authors, about their expertise, about why they are qualified to write these posts. And if you're outsourcing your writing to authors that, they're just good writers, but they don't actually have EAT, you're going to have trouble ranking well for a lot of your terms. Here's a medical article, and the guidelines say there's no evidence that this author has medical expertise. A financial article, no evidence this author has financial expertise. I'm telling you, if you are writing about your money or your life topics, so those are topics that people use to make important decisions in your life, then you need to have EAT in order to rank well. This is an example that they gave of a high-quality site, a high-quality author EAT, and every time you Google this woman's name who wrote the article, you see post after post on very authoritative sites where she writes about parenting. So she's known as an expert in parenting. So you don't necessarily need to have degrees or whatnot, but you need to be known. And how are you known? I had somebody say to me when I wrote a post about this, well, like, how could anybody become an authority if you're not recognized? And I mean, I was not recognized in SEO a few years ago, and now here I am on this stage. So I wrote articles, I got published in places, I got links from Moz and from SEMrush and places like that, and that speaks to my EAT. This is a client of ours that came to me in February of 2017. I believe February 7th, 2017 is when Google started to implement all the things in the Quality Raters guidelines into the algorithms. This site was a medical site that saw a very, very massive drop, as you can see. This image is from SEMrush, which is really good for looking at competitors' traffic when you don't have access to their analytics. And so what we did with this site was we recommended that they actually went out and got physicians. They got doctors who were known as authorities in their space and had them fact check all their posts. And so every post has an author bio that says it was written by this person who has this kind of experience that makes them relevant to write this post. And it was medically fact checked by Dr. So-and-so. And this site saw massive gains. I do have to tell you, though, and they saw gains on the August 1st update. Whatever happened yesterday and today, some of those gains are being clawed back. So I think Google sort of tweaked things a little bit with whatever they changed on the August 1st update. This is another client of ours that actually truly was an authority. They sell a very high-ticket item, and they were not ranking. They were ranking on page 3 for the majority of their terms. And what we did was we just beefed up how they displayed their EAT on their website. So we said, look, we're number 1 because we have these celebrity endorsements. We're used in these businesses. We have been mentioned in these authoritative places. Now, I don't know if our work on the website kind of alerted Google to what the EAT was for this site, or whether maybe Google just figured it out, but they jumped up to position 1, 2, and 3 for their main keywords. I mean, not all in the same time, but they jumped up to really good rankings, and that's a pretty exciting thing. So this stuff actually really works. So I'm going to finish by going through the August 1st update. And again, what I said before, I think this update was all completely about trust. This is the site that used to rank number 1 if you search for keto diet. So the keto diet, months ago I was doing some research because I thought, oh, I'll give it a try. I'm actually down almost 30 pounds, so I'm pretty excited about that. It's a pretty cool thing. But this site was ranking number 1. So when I was doing research, did I want to be seen this, hey, buy our product, sell it? It used to be $147, but just for me, it's $47. People don't fall for that kind of marketing stuff, right? And so this site saw massive, massive drops on August 1st. And I believe that it's because people went there for information and they got bombarded with sales funnels. They were, we know all these marketing things. We go to talks where they say, put this on your website, funnel people in this way. And it's not wrong to sell products on your website, but you have to think that if people are going there for information, Google's going to stop showing your site if you're just constantly selling to them. Now, interesting enough, this site actually saw a significant recovery with this latest update that's happened. And when I went to the site, they've removed that. It's not there anymore, and they have a whole page of really, really helpful information. This is the site that, at the time, after the August 1st update, was ranking #1. I think they've dropped down a couple. And so I wanted to point out a couple of things. Now, I could mention a whole bunch of things, but things that are really good that are reflected in the Quality Raters guidelines. First thing is there's tons of information. This page is thousands of words long. And I actually went to this and learned some information about this diet. Next of all, oh, and they saw, this is the improvements that they saw with August 1st. I mean, it was pretty darn good. They've dropped down a little bit, but they didn't have a full rollback of the benefits they saw. All of the articles on this site are written by a doctor who is world-renowned for the keto diet. He has written books. He is mentioned all over the place. He has plenty of clinical expertise. And so when I'm reading this article, I know that this guy knows what he's talking about. And the other thing, too, is that every single medical claim that they have is backed up by science. So I was approached at another conference by a group that sells something in the naturopathic sort of realm, and a lot of sites that had natural claims saw drops with this algorithm update. And I said, look, if there's anything you can back up with research, do that. You know, they didn't have any references at all. So I don't care whether you have them in a pop-up like this or at the bottom of your post or link to them directly, but if you have the type of topic that can be backed up by science, that speaks to your credibility. And this is in the Quality Raters guidelines that they're supposed to look and see, do they actually cite references? So this is something that is very, very important. And I want to finish with just saying that I think that SEO is changing. People can see past fake stuff. And again, like if you're very salesy, then you probably are going to lose some queries for people who want to get information. And I would say that SEO is, I mean, remember the days back pre-Penguin where you could take any business and you could rank it well if you got enough links pointing to it. And while links are still important, Google's getting so good at figuring out which sites actually are the ones that are really going to help people the most. So your goals as SEOs are challenging because, again, you can't SEO a site that has very, very bad business practices back to #1, but you can advise them. And so with that, I really encourage you to do all you can for your clients and for your own businesses to be authentic. And that's the key takeaway that I would leave you with today. Thanks.
I don't know about you, but I'm loving these sessions. So the next presentation we've got here, sometimes you think you know